right, everybody, I hope you're ready for some real Elbaf action in this chapter. I should bring something up. It's a rather big change to what Oda usually does, but we're actually ending Yamato's cover story right here. I mean, Yamato defeated Who's Who's gang, and there's really nothing more else to tell. I mean, I guess there were a couple of other regions of Wano, but yeah, that's not important. We're kicking off a new cover page focusing on Whoop Slap, the mayor of Fuchsia Village, and the first chapter is insane. Whoop Slap is at the village, right? And he senses something is amiss in the new world. So he picks up his cane, puts on his fishing hat, and rockets off of Dawn Island, flying at the speed of light, faster than Kuma, faster than Kizaru, to reach Elbaf and join the fight. Good luck to you, Whoop Slap. I'm sure when he finally arrives, it's all gonna be taken care of. All right. This will be One Piece Chapter 1144 review titled Warrior Time. Aw man, it's already Warrior Time. I'm late. According to this One Piece clock, Warrior Time is around 9 o'clock, which of course takes place after Cyborg Time, but before D Time. After that, of course, you got Nami Time, and you know, tomorrow I'm busy at Toki Time. I got something going on then. What's your favorite time of the day? The cover page is, yeah, Yamato and Tama handily defeated Who's Who's entire crew. We see all the members there, the cat ladies, and everybody wearing the cat outfits on the ground. Minatomo, who was the carpenter that was kidnapped, he is now freed, and he's crying, and he's like, oh, thank you for saving me. And Tama is untying him, like, it's all gonna be okay. And all of the Oirons, all of the women that were kidnapped all over Wano, they're going up to Yamato. And then just like they're weeping as well, like, oh, thank you for saving us. And Yamato's like, of course, no problem. Yamato has Yasuie's katana, so yeah, I guess everything's good. Everything's okay. I mean, Yamato was able to solve this like lickety-split, no problems whatsoever. So there we are, just moving forward. I mean, I guess I'm assuming the next one is going to focus on Who's Who. Like, okay, what are we going to do with this guy now? Are we just going to kill him and just execute him right here? Or like, what are we going to do? Is he going to stand trial? What's Yamato going to do with Page 1 and Ulti? Because they're basically kind of like step siblings, essentially, of how they were raised by Kaido and everything like that. So not really sure how this is all going to go, but we'll see what happens. But at any rate, Frankie is extraordinarily surprised by what he sees in the Atom Tree, even more surprised than the giant mural. There is a structure in the Atomwood tree that looks incredibly futuristic. I mean, it's old, but it's also futuristic, all right? Now, some versions of this, as I was reading the spoilers, were calling this a robot, all right? I don't know if it's meant to be a robot or if it's just a futuristic building. It has, like, on the top of it, certain, like, windows or, like, exhaust ports that could resemble eyeballs for sure. Does this thing look like Emmett, the Iron Giant? Absolutely not. However, from what we're gonna find out, this thing is actually way older than Emmett, all right? But it is certainly a building, or at least it might have been a robot that was turned into a building after it, like, powered down for the last time, all right? It's certainly futuristic. It does not seem like it belongs in Elbaf in general, let alone on this massive tree. It looks like a futuristic building or house or robot that was like left to rot and rust in the trees thousands of years ago, and that's what we have here. Probably also another heritage site, same thing with the mural, okay? So Ripley has talked about how, oh yeah, this always used to be here as far back as any giant can remember. Since you're a cyborg, Frankie, I assume this would have been the most interesting part of the tour. Frankie's like, oh hell yeah, super, where did this thing even come from? How does this even work? Why is this even here, right? So Frankie is flabbergasted over this. You know, why is something like this in the land of the giants? So out of one of the windows in the upper echelon of this building robot sort of thing. And keep in mind, it is so old that like the vegetation and the tree itself, like not just like some moss, we're talking like the branches of the tree and the wood is like growing over this structure of how long it's been there, right? You ever see that story about the bicycle that's like stuck stuck in the tree. It's kind of like that. Like the tree started to grow around this bicycle from like the 1950s. It's actually a pretty cool thing. It was a children's book I read when I was a little kid. But yeah, it's kind of like this, you know, so it's covered in vegetation, but like the tree itself is like part of it now, right? So Lilith and Bonnie walk out of this structure, of this building. They were there before Frankie, and Lilith is like, oh, hey, Frankie, you found it. I was gonna come down and ask you to come up here and see this later, but hey, that's awesome. You're seeing it too. And then Bonnie comes out and she's just like, oh, hey, Frankie, you gotta come up here. This place is so cool. And Frankie is like, oh, okay, but Bonnie, it's super, not cool. You know, and then, yeah, he doesn't say that, but that's Frankie. Hey, super, when things are awesome, all right? So, at first I thought this is where, like, Lilith, and I'm sure this is where Lilith is gonna live because it's the most futuristic place in the entire tree. But, I thought this was like, oh, this is your new home. No, they just got lost. Like, Lilith and Bonnie were exploring the tree as well, or maybe, like, Ripley was giving all three of them maybe the tour at first, and then Lilith and Bonnie just ran off ahead and they found this place. Whichever, they got lost and they ended up here, right? And they're like, oh, hey, we got lost, but thanks for finding us anyway. And Frankie's like, oh, okay, even geniuses like Dr. Vegapunk can get lost. It's fine. Ripley is saying like, oh, hey, you know, it's a good thing you guys are safe. There's been some crazy alarm going on. Ripley has no idea what's happening. There's just been like some vague alarm sounds in the distance because we don't know where they are relative to like they're high up in the tree. They're probably not at the heaven layer, like the celestial layer yet. They're still in the sun layer, but they're like deep in the Atomwood tree where they're finding like the mural and this building and all that kind of stuff, right? So she has no idea. So Lilith is saying, hey, this place is incredible. And just at a rough estimate, just from looking around all this place and like examining the structures and how old, you know, the tree growing over it and all the vegetation, this place has to be well over 3,000 years old. Whatever this thing is and however it got here, it's over 3 millennia old. So we're blitzing right past the Void Century here, okay? We're well beyond the Void Century. We are well beyond the Sea Circle calendar. We are way back in time. There are only 2 other real, like, concrete events in the One Piece story that are mentioned to exist before this. So, like, 3,000 years old this structure is. Then 4,000 years ago, the palace at Alubarna was built. And then 5,000 years ago is when the Tree of Knowledge was planted. Now, there's obviously, because the recent information with the mural, we understand that, like, oh, okay, so there's a first world, a second world, a third world, obviously stretches back, you know, thousands, if not tens of thousands of years old. And if you even go back even further to, like, millions of years old, like the time of the dinosaurs existed, obviously. But in terms of, like, recorded history, we don't have a lot from, like, several thousand years ago up until that mural and the Harley texts were mentioned. So, you know, the fact that we're seeing this thing right now is a really, really, really big deal, okay? And Oda's kind of messing with us here because of all the crazy stuff happening with the God's Knights attacking and the nightmare creatures and the children being kidnapped and all that jazz. We don't, in the fire and Loki, we don't really have a lot of time to focus on the world building. It's almost like, oh man, we found a structure that appears to be futuristic, but it's over 3,000 years old. I wonder what that's all about. Oh my god, giant dragons are attacking. We don't have time to worry about world building. We need to fight, you know? So definitely setting stuff up for maybe like the end of the arc at least, or dude, it would suck so hard if it was like, oh, what's this structure about? And then the giant demon nightmare creatures attack and they blow up the ancient building. And it's like, oh no, we didn't have time to study it. Oh well, I guess we'll just have to just forget about that and move on to something else. Dude, when we get a flashback to not even the Void Century now, like we might get a flashback to like, you know, the first world or something like that and find out that this structure was planted there or built there and then the tree grew around it or something. Like, I have absolutely no idea. There's another idea, and Artur has mentioned this quite a bit on his discussions with it. Yeah, that like the primordial, not the primordial realm, that's the underworld in Elbaf, the first world world that we're talking about in the Harley text could in fact be our world, like our Earth, that had not only one apocalypse, but like two apocalypse, two apocalypses that have occurred to get us to the One Piece world. There's also something Jinbei says in this chapter that's interesting that we kind of already knew about, but I just wanted to highlight that when we get to it. But, so who knows, like this structure here could have been like something from like our world, and it was just like, oh, okay, well, it was 3,000 years ago and it fell into ruin and the tree just, took over and like nature and stuff, and so it's kind of still here. You could also look at it like the tree is protecting it from being completely destroyed. Like if it was just a building out in the middle of nowhere in a field somewhere, the elements would have destroyed it long ago, but because the Yggdrasil tree is acting as like a support, it doesn't collapse or something. Like obviously if you leave like a skyscraper and like humans disappeared, like it would fall apart, like everything would rot and rust and there's nothing to support it. It would just fall into dust. But this thing is kind of like the structure of the tree is supporting it, as it were, right? But okay, as they're all talking about how old the building is and they got to do some research, Lilith is like, well, I might as well just move in. So the exact time that happens, Bonnie begins to scream. And Frankie's like, Bonnie, what's wrong? And she's like, behind you! And then Ripley and Frankie kind of turn around and they see the giant angry storm cloud. What sound does a giant angry storm cloud make? Like, boom, 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 I electrocute you, zap, zap, boom, boom. She's like, I don't know what sound an angry anthropomorphic lightning cloud makes. I don't know. Zeus is a character in this story, and you'd think I would know at this point, but I don't. What sound does Zeus make? So anyway, whenever the nightmare creatures appear in this chapter, Oda puts like a kind of a title box underneath them, which I guess is their names, but also like the idea of the prompt that Angie passed out to all the children at the school. And I remember doing stuff like this as when I was in elementary school. Like, what really scares me the most is, I don't know if I ever had something like that, but I remember getting like worksheets as a kid, to like draw various things. Like the happiest moment was this, or what did I do on my summer vacation? And I would draw me and my family at like Ocean City, Maryland or something like that, right? So that was kind of the prompt that Angie was giving out. And shout out to anybody that lives in Ocean City, Maryland, by the way. Like, well, yeah, Teching mentioned Ocean City, woo! I need to go back. It's been a while. I was like 12 last time I went there. Anyway, so it just says, what really scares me is the storm. So we'll just call this nightmare creature Storm. Not Storm from X-Men, but Storm. Okay, there you go. So, giant angry storm cloud attacking. Frankie turns and is like, oh, Elbaf, you really are a land of mysteries for sure. Ripley is like, oh, no, I don't know what this thing is. Like, well, listen, Elbaf, the country we live in, is absolutely marvelous, and there's a lot of mysteries and wonder, sure. This thing is a fucking demon. I don't know what this is. And then they're like, oh, okay. That is kind of funny where Frankie is like, oh, Elbaf, you and your crazy wonders and you wild animals and giant anthropomorphic storm clouds. Ripley's like, no. All right. So that starts attacking them over at that structure. Then we cut over to the Western Village where the Revenant creature, the Drow, kind of attacks. You know what I mean? So the Revenant skull zombie creature is the thing that swiped the firefighters out of the sky, and now it's attacking the village. So all the giants are picking up arms, grabbing their swords and their shields and their armor, and they're going to battle and they're trying to fight this thing. It took them out. We gotta fight them. Is that thing a zombie? What is that thing? No, I think it's a revenant. What's the difference? I don't know. Let's fight. All right, so they're charging at it there. Some of the giants are questioning because there was messages that Angie was relaying, and oh, by the way, the Den Den Mushi, the thing that we saw in the last chapter that was like relaying that message, like the announcement, it's like a subspecies of the Den Den Mushi, or like a related species. The wording that Oda used was more similar to like a pill bug than a snail, because they sound very similar in Japanese. Mushi just means like insect, but it can also mean stuff like that's really small. Did you ever watch Mushishi? Kind of like that, right? So They're talking like, oh yeah, they said that they were like nightmare creatures, but I have no idea what that means. Let's just, it's a giant skeleton that's attacking the town. We need to kill it. You know, we need to stop this thing, right? Brook sees the skeleton. Also looks like Brook has sobered up immensely. He took off his head from his crotch and he popped it back onto his neck, and he's just like, wait a second. This kind of looks like me. This looks familiar. Is this what my final form will be? I do not know. So maybe Brook's still a little bit drunk. But obviously the Straw Hats, Usopp, Jinbei, Nami, and Brook, they obviously want to help. They want to help fight. The other giants are like, one giant like just picks up the table the Straw Hats are all standing on, and they're like, we're going to evacuate you guys. Don't worry, you're our guests. Let us take care of this. This is honestly a little bit strange even for us. We've never really encountered this before, but don't worry, you guys will be safe, right? And so obviously the Strats are like, hey, we want to fight too. Even Usopp. Usopp's like, hey, we're gonna fight too. Yeah, we're gonna help you guys, right? It's like, speak up. It's like, I'm guys, come on. Like, so come on, Usopp, come on. I know you're still a little bit toasted maybe, but come on. This is your arc, baby. Pick up a hammer. It doesn't even have to be a giant hammer. Pick up a normal-sized hammer. And I don't know, a nail. Just pick up a nail. A giant nail would probably be a good, hardy, blunt weapon for you, or like a stabbing weapon. Pick up something, Usopp, and fight. All right? So, Colin is also there. Colin is like, I want to fight too. Come on, guys. I'm Gabon's son. And the giants are like, yeah, obviously, you're Gabon's son. You're not really Gabon, all right? You're not nearly as strong as he is, kid. You're going to have to hang back and stay safe, right? So, you know, the giants are, hey, they're very hospitable, if nothing else. They know how to take care of their guests. They're like, listen, this giant skeleton kaiju monster is attacking the village. We'll be the ones to take care of it. You guys hang back, right? At this point, Nami yells over to Jarl and is like, hey, there's something I didn't quite tell you. And this also kind of makes sense why Nami left the group with Zoro and Luffy and they went down into the primordial world to free Loki, and Nami just went back to the village. It's so this interaction can occur. I think Oda was like, oh wait, I need somebody to go to the banquet that will actually have been in the castle, that knows what's going on, that knows that there's intruders here, and that has to be Nami in this instance, right? So Nami leads Jarl all the way over to that gazebo where Gerd was treating those two guards from Aris Castle, right? And they bring Jarl all up to speed, and they just tell him everything. They don't tell him everything about the key and Loki and what Luffy and Zoro are up to down in the primordial world, but they tell them that, like, oh yeah, we went into the castle. I don't know if Nami mentioned she was looking for treasure to try to rob the place, but like, oh yeah, we were in the castle. We just wanted to look around. We just wanted to see what was up. It looked like a cool castle. So what? We're walking around a castle. Is that big of a deal? Jarl's like, no, I suppose not. I mean, it's an empty castle, but it is a sacred ground for all giants. It's like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, we found two guards that were knocked out, and they said somebody that looked a lot like Shanks is the one that did it. Now, we don't think it's Shanks, but there were two of them, so that we think there's somebody that's like infiltrated Elbaf, right? And so Jarl figures out almost immediately what's going on here, and he's like, okay, we need to alert the entire island on top of the fire and on top of the nightmare creatures. There's also invaders that are probably the ones that are behind all of this, that aren't the people that are humans that are not the Straw Hats, right? So he sends out a warning. Now, this is the point where Jinbei brings up something. So they obviously mentioned, like, you know, the giants that were in the castle, the guards. They were like, yeah, two of them, they were crazy strong and they had weird abilities, right? That one of them had the ability to like wrap around a bandage or an arrow and was like strangling us. So we have no idea how that worked, right? So Jinbei, he's probably one of the most learned Straw Hats about like the crazy shit that happens in this world. You know, Jinbei was a member of Neptune's army, and then he was a pirate for a time, and then he was a warlord for a number of years. I think like 11 years he was a warlord until he finally quit. He's been privy to a lot of crazy stuff from multiple organizations in this story, so he knows, okay? Jinbei is talking about how, all right, if something weird happens in this world, the general rule is it probably is to do with devil fruits, or at the very least, is devil fruit adjacent, alright? If some crazy weird shit, we found somebody that could summon lightning bolts. Yeah, okay, probably devil fruits. There's an island that's made of marshmallows. It's like, yeah, probably something to do with devil fruits around there, right? You know, so, and that's, by the way, something I wanted to mention, like, everything about this world could be because of the introduction of devil fruits and the various users of devil fruits and the awakened users over the years. If this was originally like our world, right? Like, or something similar to the world we live in, and then there were these two apocalypses and a lot of stuff changed, plus all these weird devil fruit abilities, that could have caused, you know, the creation of the red line. That could have caused all the crazy weather patterns in the grand line. All of the sea monsters, whatever the hell those things were over in the Florian Triangle. The existence of sky islands. Like, all of that stuff might just be from generations of devil fruit users and the powers lingering after the death of the user with awakening abilities and stuff like that. Like, all of this stuff over the centuries and the millennia, really, could just all lead back to devil fruits, which came about from human desire. Like, let me put it a different way. Let's say something happened tomorrow in our world, an event where anything that humans desire, if you desire it hard enough, could summon that thing in physical form. What do you think would happen? Probably absolute chaos, and would probably result in the eventual end of life as we know it. Probably, yeah, right, okay? You know, because people's desires may manifest into superpowers. Holy shit, right? Like, that would probably ultimately start some kind of, like, super-powered, like, X-Men-esque war or some shit. And then that would ultimately lead to our downfall, and then maybe some humans are still around after that, and we're picking up the pieces, and then we go into the second world, and then some more shit happens, eventually leading to the Void Century, and then the government taking over, trying to maintain, like, okay, we need to figure out a way to cause, stability here. It's an authoritarian government, but stability, right? And then that leads into this world, where eventually it's like, now we have to get rid of the world government, right? And it's like, okay, they're evil, and it's like, all right, let's take care of them, right? Because they've emus ruling them and everything like that, so that's horrible, and they have slavery and all that, so we need to abolish that, we need to get rid of that. The revolution is on, right? Right, so it's like one thing leads to another thing, and then at each transition between the first and second world, and then the second and third world, right? At that moment, it's like, oh, we have the solution to this problem, an allied force that will rule the world without any singular person in charge. Might sound like a good idea at first, and then the whole thing gets corrupted and screwed over, right? Okay? So, yeah, that's kind of where it is. It's like, at the end of the first realm, it's like, we have a solution to the problem. Oh shit, it wasn't the solution. And then at the end of the second one, okay, this time for sure we have a solution to the problem. Oh, that's not good either. Okay, like, yeah, it could be something like that. But at any rate, there's other intruders, and they have devil fruit abilities, and we need to watch out for them, so Jarl orders the giants to sound the alert. I mean, there's already like 3 other alerts going on right now, right? It's just like there's a fire and nightmare creatures, and on top of that, well, Loki's freed, but I don't think they know about that yet, and then there's also intruders that are trying to, like, kill people and kidnap children, all right? Now, Brook even brings up, well, wait a minute, only 2? Intruders? That doesn't seem right. With all the crazy stuff happening right now, there might even be more than them. Like, if we're going along with the idea that devil fruit powers are responsible for this, there might actually be multiple devil fruits that are all working together for this, and that ends up being true, of course, right? So ultimately, there were 4 of them. Shamrock left, and now there's only 3. But yeah, there's more than one, I mean, more than 2 here, absolutely. Nami, I assume that she was going to do this. She's like, I don't know who they are or where they came from, but they're kidnapping children. That's lower than scum. I'm going to go and give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to go and help, fight and help save the children. So she wants to go over to the school and help out there. So I was thinking maybe Jinbei was going to go help with the fire. That's not the case. He's just going to go over there too and help them. So hopefully the giants will be able to deal with the fire before it spreads through the entire tree. Usopp is talking about, like, okay, They want the children to be used as hostages. Like, who are these people, and what would they be asking of the giants in return for the children? Like, what do they want exactly? We don't really know. Let's see. They want to go and help Jarl and everybody, and then they're like, no, you're our guests here, you have to stay. Well, what about Dory and Broggy? Where are they at? Well, I think they ran off to the bathroom. It's like, really? At a time like this? Oh my god. Don't worry. They explain it at the end of the chapter what Dory and Broggy were doing in the bathroom. Yeah. So we understand what they did, and it'll be okay, all right? It actually is something that'll help them in battle, okay? So they're going off to there. Now, since the enemies appear to be humans, Jinbei arrives at the conclusion where it's like, I think, the giants should deal with the giant, creatures attacking the town, and then we should deal with the human-sized threats. I think that makes sense, right? However, Brook mentions that, like, well, everything is so huge in Elbaf, going from one place to another might be fairly difficult, with our tiny human legs, as it were. Brook is a tall dude, and he can run really fast, but it's like, they gotta go over a long distance in a very short amount of time, right? So Nami looks over, and you see Colin hauling a bunch of supplies and weapons over to his little svar, his little, like, cloud canoe. Now, he's a kid, but because he's a giant, that's still, like, the size of, like a small yacht or something like that to a human. Like, it's big enough that, like, multiple people can fit in this ship, all right? So Colin is like, yeah, I don't care what the adults say. I'm going to war. I asked to go to war with Shanks, and he wouldn't take me, and I wanted to fight the kid pirates, and they wouldn't let me, so you know what? Screw this. I'm going out to war. I'm going to run away from home. So he's throwing all these weapons and everything into the Savar, and they go over, and they're like, hey there, are you heading out to the battle? And he's like, yeah. Do you want to come with me? You can, but you have to make me the captain, right? And so Nami's kind of laughing, and she's like, oh, that's adorable. Okay, Captain Colin. Yeah, I got a pirate crew. And so it just cuts to Colin, raising up like a wooden practice sword as the Straw Hats are riding on his cloud canoe, and they're sailing towards the battlefield, right? And he's like, yes, the Colin pirates, set sail, row, men. And then they're like, these oars are still giant. You're the captain, you're the giant. Maybe you should be the one to actually row the ship, because we're not going to be able to, like, trying to row a giant oar. Colin also has a sword on his back, and Nami is on top of that, and so, yeah, they're all heading out. Dude, I want the scene so bad where Colin arrives at the battle and then Luffy also arrives at the battle at the same time, and Luffy sees Nami and everybody on Colin's ship, and he's like, oh hey Nami, what are you guys up to? And Colin is like, they're part of my crew now, the Colin pirates. And then Luffy gets so pissed. That's like, what the hell, guys? You left my crew? What the hell? Usopp, Jinbei, Brook, Nami, I thought we were Nakama. Why'd you join, like, Colin? And then Nami would be like, Luffy, he's just playing pretend pirate. It's fine. And then Colin would be like, what? I'm not playing pretend. And Luffy is like, yeah, there is no playing pretend. Mutiny! Mutiny, I say! It's like, okay, whatever, Luffy, we got bigger problems to worry about right now. It's like, fine, but after this is all said and done, we're gonna have a Davy back fight. And Luffy's looking at Colin like, I'm gonna beat your ass after this, and I'm gonna get my crew back, okay? For right now, let's go. Hey, Luffy almost straight up killed Colin before, all right? He was like, okay, gear third, It's just like, all right, so, yeah, that would be funny. That could lead to, like, the fact that they technically joined Colin's pirate crew. But alright, so now we're cutting back to the very nice brunch of the Gods Knights, alright? And so they have finished their meal, and Gunko is listening to a tone dial. This is so interesting. I'm so glad Oda finally included this. This is something I thought of not too long ago. Brook was a musical sensation all over the world. His tone dials were selling off the charts. He is like one of the most successful musicians in the entire world of One Piece. And I always felt like it was a missed opportunity that we don't run into more Soul King fans in the One Piece world, right? Now, granted, I understand the Straw Hats go to some places that are a little isolated sometimes. Like, I can understand they don't go to Punk Hazard and I don't know, Caesar Clown is like, oh, the Soul King, I'm a big fan. You know, it's like, no. But like, when they were walking around Dressrosa, it would have been kind of cool if some people were like, you know, listening to Brook's music and, you know, there's like, oh, I'm a big fan of the Soul King, right? It would make sense not in Zoe or in Wano, but Totland, it could have definitely made sense if you see some people listening to Soul King music in Totland, you know, and Brook was a big part of that arc as well, so that would have been fine. Egghead would have made perfect sense, you know, maybe they even had like upgraded forms, they have like an iPod Nano. They made it up to iPod Nanos, and they're listening to, you know, the Soul King, Born to be Wild, you know, kind of shit, right? So, tone dial headsets are the preferred method of listening to music in the One Piece world. I guess at some point in the last 2 years, tone dials became mass marketed, which is crazy because beforehand it was implied that they didn't know what they were. You know, like the Straw Hats learned all about the dials and none of them have ever, you know, Robin and Nami had never even heard of these things before. So, I don't know, maybe a tone dial ended up on Egghead at one point and Vegapunk found it and he's like, Quasar, I can mass market this, and he turned it into a thing. So the way it works, if you go into a music shop in the One Piece world, I think it's like for each individual song, or probably each individual album, you have to buy a pair of headphones, you know? So like, I don't know, like you're walking around, right? You know, you're like walking around a music store and you just see a pair of headphones and it says like, you know, Born to be Wild by Soul King Brook, and you're like, oh, sweet. And you put on the headphones and maybe there's a mechanism to like switch between the songs or something, just like, for the new world, you know, like something like that. Like that's how it works in the One Piece world. They're called TDs instead of CDs, tone dial. But yeah, in the last 2 years, they've really exploded and they're like all over the place now and they can be mass produced and everything. So Gunko is a fan of Brook's music and of the Soul King, and she's listening to some songs. She has good taste. Meanwhile, the announcement is being played over the entire area. Attention to the Solar Kingdom, or maybe the Sun Kingdom is what all of Elbaf is referred to, or maybe just the Sun Lair, because that's where most of the giants live, you know, down in the primordial realm. That not a lot of people live down there, and the celestial realm is probably sacred, so I would imagine most of the giants live in the Sun Lair in the Sun Kingdom. Humans not affiliated with the Straw Hat crew have been confirmed at RS Castle. Hostility is expected of them. Please stay calm and, you know, report any suspicious characters and stuff like that, right? So they're not really paying attention to the announcement. They're just kind of sitting there, Summers and Killingham, and just talking about Gunko and her post-meal ritual. Like, oh, there she goes again, listening to music at the end of a meal. And Gunko is like, I don't know why you're calling it a ritual. It's just something I prefer to do. What, you don't like to just hang out and chill and listen to some music after you had a big meal? It's like, whatever, screw you, dude, right? Also, the idea that Gunko is maybe from the lower realm originally, maybe a revolutionary, maybe somebody else, and she was promoted into the God's Knights the same way they asked Loki, is I doubt the Celestial Dragons really listen to the music of, like, the lower realm, you know what I mean? Because they think they're so much better than everybody else. They don't listen to the lowly music of the masses, but Gunko might have been a huge fan of Brook, maybe before she joined. You know, in some point in the last 2 years, she joined. By the way, there's some theories as well that she might be some kind of clone of Ginny. I'm not really sure about that. We'll make another video maybe to unpack that later. But, like, it makes sense that she would be the one listening to music because she's not a saint. She's not one of the Celestial Dragons originally, right? So maybe Summers and Killingham are kind of like chastising her, sort of making fun of her for listening to music at the end of a meal or something of that nature, right? And so they ask her, okay, well, what's your favorite song, Gunko? And she's there just listening, and she's like, New World is my favorite song. Hey, Gunko, I'm right there with you. You know, I have Soul King Brook on my playlist right here. There it is. Today is the day. Yeah, exactly. I have it on my playlist. I've had it on my playlist since like 2012. You know what I mean? Great song. Fantastic song. Okay, so I'm just going to set these very expensive headphones over there so I don't flail them around. Okay, so she says New World is my favorite song from the Soul King, and Summers is like, oh, New World, huh? So does that mean you're unhappy with the world today? And Killingham is just like, hey man, just lay off Gunko. Like it's okay. It's like you're really like he's really like going after like every single thing. He's like, oh, you listen to music at the end of a meal? What's your favorite song? Oh, New World. Does that mean you have a problem with this world? It's just like, Summer, shut up and let her listen to her music. It's just like, shut up. Okay? So, and Killingham is like, hey, Summers, you know, maybe quit making fun of Gunko for stupid reasons and come over here and look at this. Okay, so Saul is there attempting a new strategy on stopping the children from walking into a fire and dying, all right? So he tried to, like, just grab them and pull them back. That obviously didn't work because of the thorns. So now we have unlocked double shield Saul. So Saul now has 2 big Viking shields, and it's like, hold on. Of course I have 2 shields on standby. All right, kids. All right, I got 2 shields here. All right, so what's going to happen is you're going to walk right into these shields and you won't be able to walk into the fire. And good luck trying to stab me now with those magic thorns. You can't pierce through these Elbathian shields, you know? So he puts up the wall, and Robin and Chopper are not really helping. Robin and Chopper are just kind of like, you got this, Saul. It's like, I don't know, guys. Maybe you should, like, hop out of his beard and try to help Chopper. Maybe you could go into guard point and try to stop the children that way so they just walk into a big puffball. You know, Robin, you have one of the most versatile devil fruits in the entire story. Maybe you could come up with something in order to stop the children that doesn't involve directly touching them to, you know, get stabbed. But whatever, Saul's like, all right, new idea. I'm gonna grab some shields. It's like, all right, well, that's a good idea. Let's see what happens, all right? So the children are all following the arrow. Saul keeps calling it a cloth-like thing, so I'm imagining the consistency of it is like a flag or a cloth. I am assuming Saul tried to mess with the arrow. I'm assuming, we don't see it, but I'm assuming he tried to, like, grab it or rip it or cut it, and that didn't work, because that would have been, like, the first thing I would have tried. Like, there's a large arrow pointing in one direction that the children are all following, like, single file. Maybe if we destroy this... And honestly, that could be what Chopper and Robin are trying to work on right now. It's like, guys, come on. Delegate responsibility here. It's like Saul's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go grab these shields and I'm going to stop them from moving forward into the fire. Robin, Chopper, you figure out what's up with that cloth arrow thing and you try to destroy it so that the children maybe stop following it. Okay, Saul, gotcha. There you go, right? Okay, so, the shields kind of work and kind of don't. So Ylva is the line leader right now. She walks right into the shield, and then the vines come out, the thorns come out, and they begin to pierce the shield. They don't hit Saul, and then Ylva kind of stops because she can't move forward. But then the child behind her immediately walks into Ylva, and then they both get stabbed. And they do not wake up, they're still asleep, but they still feel pain. So that's something else very important to understand. Killingham's ability must be so powerful that it literally puts you into, like, hypnosis, like a trance. So even, like, you know, feeling pain. I mean, they yell in pain, they're like, it hurts, but they don't wake up. At least I'm pretty sure, yeah, they are not waking up. Now, even if they woke up, that might affect them moving forward, or it might not, because the arrow is there. They might have to, like, the compulsion to move forward. But even if they woke up, that doesn't make the nightmare creatures go away. The salt was still there even after Summers woke up, okay? So that's not going to be the solution to the problem, right? There's not going to be an easy way to take out the nightmare creatures, right? The only easy way to do it is if you defeat Killingham, I would assume. But, like, waking up the child that dreamt about Fenrir is not going to make Fenrir just... like, vanish, okay? So the children both got stabbed, and Saul is like, oh shit, no, okay, that plan didn't work. Okay, all right, back up, new plan, plan C, you know, plan C then. All right, so they got stabbed. Robin is like, oh, these poor things, what a horrible trap this is. It's like, yeah, Robin, Chopper, why don't you hop off of Saul and you figure some other shit out? Come on, Robin, you're smart, come on. So anyway, Saul plan C. All right, he's like, all right, here's what I'm going to try. All right, oh man, I'm going to have to use every single lesson they taught me in the Marines for this, all right. So he takes out some rope, and he's like, all right, if I can't stop the children from moving forward, and if I like physically obstruct their path, they're just gonna bump into each other and stab each other that way. All right, well, how about I circle back to the end of the line where there's a kid named Bjorn, and it's like, all right, what if I just, you know, throw a rope around Bjorn and then just pull him back, and then, like, one at a time, get them out of the single file line, and so that way I could stop them that way. And it does work. So he throws a rope around Bjorn. You'd think the thorns would, like, shred the rope immediately, but it doesn't. All right, and then just throws it around there, and then, you know, the kid actually, he's still asleep. Bjorn does not wake up, but he's like... You know, so he's not moving forward. He's broken away from the arrow's effect. It's like, okay, so there is a way to do that. Maybe take Bjorn, put him to the side. If he's not next to the arrow, then he's just going to fall asleep on the ground, and he's not moving forward anymore. So it's like, okay, just like one at a time, do that with the entire group. So they have a method that apparently works, right? However, little bit of a problem with that. As soon as they think they found a way to stop this, Fenrir, the giant nightmare wolf, emerges from the trees and goes to try to stop them. So what really scares me most is Fenrir, and so the same little title box underneath Fenrir, okay? And Saul is like, wait a minute, these beasts are trying to help them die? You know, walk into the fire? Man, who's responsible for all this? What's going on here? So I'm assuming, and Chopper is screaming, so I'm assuming this is the point where, like, okay, Saul, you help the children, Robin and Chopper will deal with the giant nightmare wolf. I'm assuming that's what they're going to do. They don't say anything, but that's what happens. We cut back to the Walrus School where we see Angie and we see Kiba, the principal, and they're talking about how, okay, principal, not only in the West Village, but the villages all over Elbaf are being attacked by these things, right? So it isn't just that one village. So there are other villages in Elbaf. We haven't really seen any others, but there are ones, and they're being attacked as well, so they're not going to have help. You know, there's like, what like all the other giants and all the other different villages, what are they doing? They're dealing with the same shit with all the other creatures, right? You know, one of them is maybe dealing with the other ghost. So we got to figure out who the culprit is really fast. That's Kiba's idea. If we find out who's responsible and stop them, then the nightmare creatures might disappear. Not a bad idea. It's going to be harder than it's said, though. You know, it's going to be like easier to say than do. What's the expression I'm thinking of? Easier said than done. There we go. That's a thing. All right. So now cutting back to the Western Village, the giants all working together, which with it seems like some casualties, have managed to drop the revenant creature, the giant skeleton. Okay. They dropped him. They beat him, and just like how, you know, Saul and Kiba were working together, they were able to defeat the Jormungandr. So it is possible. But some of them seem like a little stronger than others. They were able to take the Jormungandr down with like 2 solid hits. These are like an entire army of giants, like a little squadron of giants working together, and it took a lot of them, and there's some on the ground like knocked out, maybe dead, I don't know. But it was apparently very hard to take out this skeleton, okay? So maybe it's like the more fear that a child had over this particular nightmare, they're stronger. But a lot of people were saying, like, well, these nightmare creatures, they might not be so strong. You know, like one hit might be enough to take them out. Doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, I understand these are just like regular giants from the village. They're still pretty tough, though. You know, do they have crazy devil fruit abilities or like super strong conquerors hockey? No. But, you know, there's a lot of giants that are getting taken out by these things, right? So they gave us a lot of trouble, but we were able to take one down. Then the Needhog shows up, the lightning dragon, and starts spitting lightning breath everywhere. And so the giants keep getting nuked from that. So we see what really scares me most is Needhog and then a ghost. And that's the ghost that has the top hat that looks like something like Perona would draw in her notebook or something, right? So there's, oh yeah, Perona. Do you think Perona owns a Death Note? Perona definitely owns a Death Note. You know, Perona and Misa would probably get along pretty well. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. All right, anyway, so we have really like the last panel of the chapter, last kind of double-page spread. So as the giants are facing down, they just took down one of the nightmare creatures, and it took a lot of effort for that. 2 more of them, actually 3. We have the Needhog, the Ghost, and we're also going to see the version of Loki, the Nightmare Loki giant, was also attacking the village. They're all like, oh man, I don't know what we're gonna do. How are we gonna fight all these things, guys? And then at that exact moment, Hakaku! So the combination attack between Dory and Bragi roars through the sky like a fucking giant, like times 20 Kamehameha, just boom, and just hits the Needhog and hits the bearded Loki nightmare creature and the ghost, and just like obliterates all 3 of them in a single shot. Giant hole blasted right through the dragon. The ghost is like completely obliterated by the attack. We see the great Eirik, the ship of the giant warrior pirates, the original giant warrior pirates. And it's been modified into the Sval. It has the cloud, a package added to it. You know, the cloud trim package added to your Svar, added to your ship, right? So it can fly now. And then you see the giant warrior pirates in all their glory. You see the nightmare creatures beginning to like dissipate. And then Dory and Broggy arrive. And they're like, yeah, I know it was a real shame, guys. We had to go to the bathroom and we had to puke up all of that good booze. But now we're sober and we're battle ready. Just in time for warrior time. Ugh! Dude, that is so epic. Hey, listen. I don't care whatever you want to say about Dory and Broggy and that, you know, they fell for the tricks that Mr. 3 did way back at Little Garden, like Dory drank some exploding ale and was taken out of most of the ark, or Broggy was contained with that wax and he tried to break out and then he got more wax, like Mr. 3 was able to keep him down. I don't care what you want to say. They are strong as hell. They are powerful warriors. They got armament hockey. And I don't think they have a single technique they've done so far that isn't a combination attack. And what's really great is Hakaku, you know, warrior sovereignty. I mean, that technique is like their finisher. It's their overdrive, right? It's their burst limit or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's like if you have a technique at your disposal that you can use, your ultimate finishing move, why wouldn't you use that all the damn time? So they used it to obliterate the giant goldfish at Little Garden. Then they used it to obliterate the Victoria Punk on the shores of Elbaf. And now they're here. We're just gonna use the limit break again to obliterate the giant nightmare creatures. I mean, you just spam Hakaku. Or you just spam that shit every single day and just like boom, boom, boom. I wonder what the recharge is on that. I don't know. But, and they got fresh new weapons, too. The weapons they had at Little Garden broke after fighting for 100 years, but they got fresh weapons now, so they could keep this up all day, right? Yeah. They had some other techniques. They had the Sun Saw ability they used to cut down Jew Peter way back at Elbaf. Way back at Elbaf. That was like, I don't know, 10 months ago or whatever. And then they also used the technique where they had the shields. They had like a combination attack with their shields, right? So they like every single attack they have is like in perfect harmony with one another because of just how many years they've spent fighting together or fighting one another at Little Garden. It's like they are perfectly in sync. To use a soul eater term, they're like the synergy of their souls, right? Like, you know, their resonance, the soul resonance is like at top level with them, right? They can get that. Okay. So they puked up all the booze. That's why they had to go to the bathroom so they could get sober really quick. I've never been drunk. I don't know if that's how that works. I don't know if that's how that works. Like, man, I'm really drunk, guys. Wait, hold on a minute. Okay, I'm good now. I can drive. I don't think that's the way it works, but this is One Piece, and so that's how that works. All right, so then, also, they're not alone. It wasn't just Dory and Broggy on that ship. I mean, we also got Oimo and Kashi and all the other members of the Giant Warrior Pirates. But we also have, last panel of the chapter, we got Yasan. We got Scopper Gyaban, the left arm of the Pirate King, also on that ship. And he's got an axe in one hand, and he's got a bottle of sake in the other, and he's ready to tear shit up! Elbaf! And then the giants are all looking up, and they're like, wow, that ship is practically invincible now. It can fly, and you got Dory and Broggy, and you got Yasan. Oh my god, that ship is invincible. Dude, I would love that. That ship is... Yeah, reference. Okay, so, no break next week. This is it, man. We're getting ready for the battle. Warrior time indeed. Woo! I was wondering what Scopper was going to do. If Scopper was just going to go home and chill out and then get involved way later in the battle. But no, Scopper's jumping in right now. He's like, hey, I'm up for a battle. If you're up for a battle, Dory and Broggy, let's go do this, all right? Yeah. So we're going to see what he's really capable of there. He's got his Hawaiian shirt. He's got an axe. He's got booze. He's got a thing like a gourd of sake ready to go, man. He's just going to be like drinking sake and just slashing, like one-shotting these nightmare creatures. It's going to be wild. Okay, so we have this battle going on in the village. I'm assuming they're also going to deal with the fire. Then we have Luffy's group down in the primordial realm with Loki. We don't catch up with them in this chapter. We have no idea what's going there. We did not get Loki's sad crybaby backstory in this chapter. We're going to get to that soon, but I think we want to, like, Oda wants to show some other stuff. Actually, I know what Oda's all about. I see how he does things. Sets up like the beginnings of the battle, like holy shit, Dory, Broggy, Scopper's there. Okay, that the Straw Hats are with Colin. They're heading to the battle too. And then like right before the battle really gets started, like when the God's Knights start to show up, now we're going to cut to a few chapters of a flashback so we understand what's all happening with Loki and Harald and Hyrudin and their upbringing and all that shit. And then after the flashback, then we get into the battle. That's usually how Oda does it, so I'm expecting that from this. So, how many nightmare creatures were killed? Let's see here. You know what? I am actually going to go back. When was it? 1142, right? That was the chapter where the nightmare creatures emerged, right? Yeah, the things I find scary. Let's go back to a previous chapter really quick, which I can do with my magical tablet next to me. And let's look at all of the nightmare monsters and see which ones are still around and which ones have already been defeated. Okay, here we go. All right, so we have, let me just count them from right to left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10... 11, 12. Okay, I'm counting 12 nightmare creatures, maybe 13 if you want to include the Jormungandr. Jormungandr was defeated by Saul and Kiba. We have the bear with a helmet. That's still around. Needhog was obliterated by Dory and Broggy. We have the giant, like, cockatrice kind of like a bird monster. That thing is still around. Loki has been defeated. Fenrir is fighting against Saul, Robin, and Chopper right now, and I guess the other, like the teachers from the school are going to get involved with that as well. The Storm Cloud is attacking that futuristic area up at the Yggdrasil tree, so you got Frankie, Ripley, Lilith, and Bonnie. Frankie's got RPGs and missiles out the ass. Then we have Ripley, who used to be a warrior. Bonnie can go into the sun god form, and she's really strong with her ability. And then Lilith might have like a bubble gun or some kind of like, bazooka or futuristic laser gun that she swiped from Egghead before she left, so she can probably fight too. So I think they'll be okay. Then we have like the squid monster, the octopus monster. We don't know where that is right now. There's another ghost that's not the ghost that was defeated by Dory and Broggy here, just a regular kind of like spooky Scooby-Doo ghost, like woo. And then we have Nika. We have like the evil version of the sun god. We don't know where that thing is at right now. The Revenant, the draw thing, that was defeated by the giants. And then we have somebody's, one of the kids' mothers, like the nightmare version of their mom, like stomping around too. And then we have the ghost with the top hat that was obliterated. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the nightmare creatures that we see here just in this panel. There might be others. Like, Oda could always draw, like, oh, there was another one that was an alligator that we just didn't see. One of the kids is really afraid of an alligator. We have a giant wasp, which would probably be my nightmare creature. Giant wasps are also attacking, right? So, Oda could always draw more, but in the sense of this one panel that we see, yeah, we've defeated like 4 or 5, and yeah, we have like 8 left. So, yeah, that's a lot of nightmare creatures, guys. This is going to be a tough battle. What is up with the future building, the robot, or whatever that is? We saw, like, in the mural, which I have over here. So, we saw in the mural that there was, like, a robot. Now, this robot in the mural is very clearly Emmett, like the way it's designed and drawn. I don't think this structure is a robot. I know a lot of people were saying it looks kind of like a robot. To me, it doesn't look like a robot. It looks like a building that originally was futuristic, that was built with metal and all the sort of modern things, like it had an exhaust port and windows and glass and everything on it, and then it eventually just got taken over by nature, okay? And now is like all ruined and stuff, and part of it is maybe like fossilized with how old it is, right? And it would fall apart. But who knows? Maybe Lilith could figure out something, find something nuts in there. Maybe Lilith is digging around and she finds like a remnant of like a battery or like some prototype of the Mother Flame or some shit in this old building that nobody else knew what it was, but she could figure out like, wait a minute, I can access the power of this place. And she's like, wait a second. And like the whole thing powers up or something. Maybe if anybody could do it, it would be Vegapunk. It would be Lilith, right? I think Bonnie and Frankie and Ripley can deal with one of these nightmare creatures with, like, Lilith going around and figuring something else inside. Like, I think that could definitely happen there. But yeah, really solid chapter. I think that Oda's just trying to build up as much hype as possible. In the next chapter, I think we're going to see what's up with Luffy's group. Maybe Nami's group arriving as well for the battle, and they jump out and they're ready to fight. And then I think we're going to go on break next week. So what I think the next chapter is going to be is at the end of the next chapter, we're going to start Loki's backstory, like the last panel, or the last page. And then, 2-week break, and then the start of Loki's backstory for a few chapters, and then going back to the fight. I think that's what we're going to get, okay? Also, let me know what you feel about, like, the significance of Gunko listening to Brook's music, right? Because Brook's music is all about, like, feeling your soul, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in there about, like, freedom and hope, you know, the brand new day. There's also his hit song, What the Hell Even Am I? You know, and Bone to Be Wild. A lot of Brook's songs are skeleton-themed, all right? He is the best skeleton-themed musician in all of the world, because he's a skeleton. Yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! But there's songs in there about, like, New World and stuff, too, that make you really feel hyped up and energized for a new era, a new age, you know what I mean? So maybe there's some idea there. Maybe if Gunko used to be a member of the Revolutionary Army, she's listening to music about, like, a new era. Ah, there you go, right? Okay. Maybe Gunko is, maybe we have it backwards. Maybe she wasn't a member of the Revolution that then joined the God's Knights. Maybe she joined the God's Knights and is a double agent for the Revolutionaries. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know, maybe. It's an idea. All right, but other than that, battles are starting, and it's getting pretty intense. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go check out Brook's new single, and this will be Teching 101 signing out. One Piece anime is coming back very, very soon. We're going to have a new opening. Kizaru's there. It's going to be wild. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Teching signing out. For the new world.